My name's Richard, and I co-work this session with Colin and Ajahn Subhaddo, who is in Spain. Just if people have a few more minutes, I see that people are still arriving. So whilst they're doing that, do get comfortable, get into a comfortable sitting position. Here in London, it's about 2 degrees and destined to drop overnight to minus something, but not very cold, not as cold as the last few nights. I don't know what it's like wherever you are logging in from, but it's a very cold January evening. And I hope that wherever you are, you're reasonably warm and comfortable. So wherever in the world you're logging in from, whatever time of day it is, a very warm welcome to you from the Buddhist Society. And thanks right here at the beginning for coming together like this to form this online Sangha. And what I suggest we do right at the very outset of our time together this evening is if we just actually allow ourselves to arrive together here online, but more importantly, in the room that you're actually in, just arrive with yourself. And one of the ways we can do that is just by allowing our attention to drop. So just sitting reasonably upright and just allow your attention to drop downwards. So a good place to start when we come together to meditate, or if we meditate alone, is just by grounding our attention. So just allow your attention to drop downwards consciously from the busy mind that's always thinking. And one way of doing this is to actually start to feel the points of contact with the floor, either the soles of your feet touching the floor, or if you're sitting cross-legged on the floor, it would be your ankles and your shins. And if you've just joined us and you've just logged on and you need to get things arranged, that's absolutely fine. Take your time. One of the things that I want to encourage in this session is that we move slowly. There's no rush, there's no hurry. And that's another thing that you can bring to your practice right from the outset. There's nowhere to get to. So just really take your time. Just see if you can find a nice upright sitting position where you can hold your attention easily for about half an hour or so without getting uncomfortable. And one of the things we're doing here in grounding our attention is we're learning to be in the present moment. And we can do it with any part of the body, but dropping our attention from the head down towards the ground is a good place to start. And can I offer you some sort of gentle encouragement here? Right from the outset, if you can start to notice where your attention actually goes. So I've offered you an invitation to drop your attention down into the soles of your feet or your ankles and shins. But the other encouragement is to really quite closely notice what you do with that invitation. And if you've just joined us, a very warm welcome to you. We're beginning our practice this evening by grounding our attention with the points of contact with the floor. So where does your attention actually go when you receive that invitation? It may be that you're thinking about the points of contact or imagining them, and you may be feeling them at the same time. And just notice precisely what you are doing. And it's okay if you're doing any of those things. It's absolutely okay. The point is to notice. And if you've just logged on and you're just joining us, a very warm welcome. We're beginning by just grounding our attention with the points of contact with the floor. So find a comfortable sitting position and just drop your attention downwards. And just notice how your attention ebbs and flows, how it may be with the contact, the sensation of the touch of the floor, and it may waver and move on to other things and then come back again. And that's absolutely normal. Just notice it. And take it slowly. And then I invite you to move your attention just upwards through your shins and your calves, your knees, and just feel that area of your body, the lower limb, the lower leg. Just explore what sensations there are there. And if there's nothing much to feel, just notice that too. And once again, the encouragement is to pay quite close attention to where your attention actually goes. Are you thinking about that area of the body? Is there a visual image of it? Are you feeling it? Is it a mixture of all three? And whatever it is, it's absolutely fine. It's okay. Be gentle and compassionate with yourself. None of these invitations or encouragements are to concentrate tightly or to grasp after a certain experience. They're simply to notice what's going on. And then I invite you to move your attention up your upper leg, your thighs, feeling the back of your thighs, perhaps touching the chair or the cushion, and the front of your thighs, the quadriceps, perhaps with clothing touching them. Just feel that area of your body. And again, just notice where your attention goes. And then move your attention to your sitting bones on the chair or the cushion. And just see what the sensation is there. What's it like just sitting? The touch of the cushion and the chair. And again, just notice what you do with the invitation. And although the invitation is to be with the direct sensation of that part of the body, just notice where it actually goes, and there's no requirement. It's not a mistake if it's moving about. It's flitting onto thoughts and other distractions. It's not a mistake. Just notice that, and then simply bring the attention back to the direct sensation of that part of the body. And then again, the invitation is to shift your attention to the back and the spine in particular. Just notice what sensations there are there. If you're sitting on a chair or a settee, there may be contact with the back of the chair or the settee. How does that feel? If you're sitting unsupported, notice how that feels. And again, notice where your attention actually goes and how it moves. And these are gentle invitations. There's no requirement that you must be with the back or the spine in particular. It's just a question of noticing and then returning to that part of the body. Notice where your attention actually goes. And then just gently bring it back with kindness and an understanding that it's absolutely normal and natural for the attention to move. And as we pay attention to our back and our spine, just check that you're reasonably upright as much as your body will allow, and be really compassionate and kind to yourself here. I guess none of us have bodies that we had in our youth. Upright might be difficult for you. But just see what you can manage. But do keep comfortable. And then move up again to the neck and shoulder area. And just feel what tension you might be carrying in that area. The back of the neck and the shoulders, we often carry a lot of tension around with us. Just notice that. And see, as you do that, if you can keep soft and open. And as you come to the head, just see if you can align your head and your neck with your spine so that everything's in a reasonably upright column. And then just feel the whole of your head sitting on your neck. Just feel back of your head, your face, your ears, the crown of your head. Just notice how it feels. Sitting there aligned with your spine. Notice the air on your face. And as you take in the head, you may notice just the movement of air through your nostrils. Gentle flow in and out. Slightly cool on the in-breath. Slightly warm on the out-breath. And then just bring your attention to the crown of your head, the very top of your body, and just see if you can just lengthen a fraction towards the sky so that it pulls your spine into a nice upright column. And just feel whatever you feel in that area of the body. And again, just notice closely where your attention goes. And then I invite you just to become aware of the whole of your body, from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, where we started, or the points of contact with the floor. Just taking it all in. So you're feeling the boundaries of your body, contact with the back of the chair or the settee, the contact with the cushion or the chair, contact with the floor, the clothes on your skin surface, and the air on your hands and your face. So just the whole of your physical body, just take it all in, just noticing it. Noticing the areas that you can't feel so much, noticing the areas where there's a lot of feeling, where it's easy to contact. And as you move through the body, just taking it all in, just pay close attention to how you're feeling, how you're sensing. The encouragement there that I gave right at the beginning to move slowly is still there. Take it slowly. There's no rush. Just explore all the feelings in this body of yours that's carried you so far in this life so well. So where is your attention now? Having received these invitations and encouragements, where is it right now? And gently, when you're ready, just open your eyes and let that go. Okay, so feel free to move and stretch and take a sip of water if you need to. Okay, so well done, all of you who sat through this. Yeah, it's a good 25 minutes of sitting meditation. So well done. Thanks for sticking with me. Please feel free to stretch and have a little adjustment of your posture if you need to. And if you've just joined during that, a very warm welcome from the Buddhist Society to you. Thank you for coming together to join this online Sangha. So what we did there was a basic body scan. This is one way of doing it. I started with the feet because we spend a lot of time thinking. If you listen to the neuroscientists who track people's brainwave patterns, they tell us that most of the day we're thinking up to 50,000 thoughts a day. And so our minds are very busy. And one of the points of practice is just to sort of bring our attention into the present moment. And of course, as both my colleagues here and in any meditation class will teach, is one way of doing this is to bring our attention into direct contact with the sensations in the body. And that's one way of doing it. And if you do this at home, there's no requirement that you start at the feet. It's just a pretty good place to start. You can work in any way you want. And many people just have their own way of working and they stick with that, and that's fine. This is just one way. So I always drop my attention downwards because I spend a lot of time during the day thinking. At night even, I guess, my brain is pretty busy. So grounding it like that, but like the way we started just 25 minutes ago, brings my attention downwards and settles it. And one of the points I wanted to get across was that when you receive those invitations from a meditation facilitator or teacher, there's no requirement to actually concentrate tightly. That's not the point of the practice. The point of the practice is just to refine your attention and start noticing. Just bring your attention into the present moment by noticing what's going on. Now, many people mistake these instructions and they think, I've got to be 100% with the soles of the feet or the sitting bones or the back or whatever part of the body is being mentioned last. And I've got to be there 100% of the time and I mustn't deviate. And if I do, I've failed. Well, it ain't like that. It really isn't. It really is just about gently noticing and using parts of the body to explore, to help us notice. And we're going to work with the breath in a few moments, as many of you, I'm sure, are very accustomed to doing. And that's another way of bringing our attention into the present moment. But that was one point I wanted to really emphasize, is that it's not a concentration practice. There is a place for concentration in meditation, but this is a basic class and this isn't about concentration. So the mind will waver, it will wander, distractions will come and go, and we just notice them. So the other point I wanted to get across was that we can be kind and compassionate and understanding to ourselves when we notice the mind wandering. So it isn't that we've made a mistake or that we've failed in our meditation practice. We can just notice with kindness and compassion that this is the way the mind is, and that's absolutely fine. So that's another element, another encouragement to bring in right from the beginning with your practice, is this kindness and compassion. So a real encouragement to you is, many of us have been brought up with sort of quite critical mindsets, self-critical mindsets. And the encouragement here, certainly in this practice, is really to relax that if you can. Just notice it and see if you can bring in an element of kindness and compassion, self-care. Just gently understand what we're doing here is we're exploring how things are, how the mind actually is. And this is part of a process, really. So right at the outset, the encouragement is to develop this part of your practice, just bringing in kindness, self-care, and compassion. So, as I was saying, the neuroscientists tell us that we think thousands of thoughts every day. We all have busy minds, and you know that. You absolutely know it. Whether you've been practicing for 20 years or for 20 minutes or for 2 minutes, you know that the mind has a tendency just to be busy, and that's great. It's wonderful. We have wonderful, creative, imaginative, busy minds, and that's what has helped humanity to survive thus far. It's just how, there's an evolutionary mechanism at work here. Has developed this capacity to think, and that's what we have, and it's absolutely fine, and we're not in a fight with it. But what we can do is use another faculty of our awareness, which is this capacity to notice what is going on in our minds whilst it's going on. If you like, that's in itself a definition of mindfulness. I don't much go in for definitions. It's very tight and constricting sometimes. But if you wanted an explanation of this practice, this is about being mindful. And mindfulness is largely, there are many people who will give you quite concise thought explanations or definitions. But just very simply, it's about noticing what's going on whilst it's going on. And we're quite, our brains are quite well suited for doing that. And it's really just a question of developing that faculty. And the practice is really a training in developing precisely that part of our mind's capacity to notice whilst we're doing something. One of the things I wanted to bring to your attention this evening is this is only the second week of term, I believe, and is it the third week? I can't remember. But anyway, we're very near the beginning of the new year, beginning of term. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about this evening was about this sense of beginning every time we meditate, beginning afresh. So many of you here will be experienced practitioners. Some of you may be fairly new to practice, and some of you may be returning to practice after a break. But wherever you are in your journey with meditation and with practicing mindfulness, there's one thing that we can usefully remind ourselves each time we sit, and that is that we can begin afresh every time. We can start anew. This is really, we're talking about beginner's mind here. I like to remind myself pretty much every time I sit that I'm beginning this session anew. This is, I'm just exploring what's going on completely freshly. It's not that I'm coming to this with a set of expectations. So that's one thing that we can, I'll talk some more about this later on. But just if I can encourage you when we begin to sit again in a few minutes, if you can just bring a sense of beginning this practice really afresh, new, with this sense of being a beginner, a beginner's mind. So we may have the same old mind that we've had for years and years and years, but when we explore it right now, we're exploring it for the first time right now. And if you've just joined us, a very warm welcome to the Buddhist Society and this basic meditation session. And we're just exploring the idea of each time we sit, beginning afresh. with beginner's mind. So I've talked for quite a few minutes now, so let's do some more sitting. And this time, many of you will be accustomed to working with the breath in meditation. That's precisely what we're going to do. So I invite you now to sit again in your upright meditation posture and just get comfortable again. Just ground your attention in your body. And we can begin again as we did last time, just over half an hour ago. We can begin precisely as we did by dropping our attention downwards. So allowing our attention just to drop from our head, from the thinking mind that's been paying attention to my little talk. Just allow it to sink downwards, contact the soles of the feet or the ankles and shins, just the points of contact with the ground that supports you. And just see if you can be with the direct sensation of the contact with the floor. And again, as we did last time, just notice where your attention actually goes when you receive my encouragement and my invitation. And if it's going off onto this or that, that's absolutely fine. You haven't made a mistake. Just notice it and see if you can just bring it gently back to the direct sensation, the contact with the floor. And then in the same way as we did before, just feel your sitting bones on the chair or the cushion. Just get a sense of sitting right there in the room that you're in. Just notice where your attention goes. Just see if you can bring it back to the direct sensation sitting. And then when you're ready, just move your attention to your back and your spine in particular. And again, just feel the contact with the back of the chair, the settee, or if you're sitting unsupported, just notice how that feels. And if you've just joined us, a very warm welcome. Just please sit in a comfortable upright position. And we're just working again through the body, noticing. And if you haven't already done so, just find a neutral position for your hands, either resting in your lap, one on top of the other, or on your thighs, upturned or downturned. Just find a position that works for you, that's comfortable and relaxed. It's really so you don't have to think about what to do with them. And then move your attention upwards again to the neck and the head, and just take in that area of your body. Just feel the back of your neck, back of your head, your ears, your face. Just take it all in. And see if you can align your head with your neck and your neck with your spine, so everything's reasonably upright. An upright column, as they say. And then see if you can just take in the whole of your physical body, from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, including your back, your spine, your sitting bones. Feel the contact, your feet on the floor, your sitting bones on the chair. Just taking it all in and noticing quite closely where your attention goes. And then sitting here, still and quiet in your room, you may notice there's some movement in the body. And I draw your attention to that. So without altering your breath in any way, just see if you can pick up with your attention the sensation of the movement caused by the breath. And many of you will be used to working with the breath. You're new to meditation. You may need to experiment a little bit and just find where it's easiest for you to connect with it. So the traditional areas are the chest or the abdomen or the rim of the nostrils. Just find out where it's easiest for you to feel it. And again, just notice quite closely where your attention actually goes. And the encouragement here is not to grasp after the breath, or to concentrate tightly on it. It's just to gently notice it. Notice its gentle rhythm, the rise and the fall of the chest or the abdomen. Notice the movement of the mind as well. How thoughts will come and go. How noises in your room may distract you. And it's absolutely okay. Everything is allowed. The encouragement is just to notice kindness and compassion, and then just return your attention back to the sensation of the breath. So there's two encouragements that I would remind you of here. First one we mentioned right at the beginning, and that's to slow down. Consciously slow everything down. And the other one is to be kind and compassionate to yourself as you work with the breath. Just noticing with kindness, and self-care, with understanding really of how the mind is. This is how it is. And it's okay. And if you have a difficult mindset and you're noticing that, notice it with compassion and care and understanding that this is a process. So there's a sensation of the breath, and there's the movement of the mind, and we can notice both. So if you're getting lost in your practice, just notice that and see if you can just bring your attention back to the body. Always ground your attention back with the feet or the ankles and shins. Or you can touch again into the breath, the sensation of the movement caused by the breath. So just noticing where you are now. Where is your attention? And if you're getting lost, the practice is just to notice that and just reconnect with the sensation of the movement of the breath. And so as we move towards the end of this sit with our breath, just noticing where you are now. Where is your attention? Where is the breath? How is the breath? And when you're ready, just open your eyes and let that go. Okay, so please feel free to stretch and move and take a sip of water. And just to say a few things about what we've done so far, if you've just joined us, to recap for you. So we've actually done 2 sits in the last hour. We did a body scan in the first half hour, and this last 20 minutes or so, we did mindfulness of breathing. And both of those practices you can use on your own at home, and they're well established in the tradition. And basically, both of them are designed to bring your attention into the present moment and to train your attention to actually rest in a relatively settled and calm state. But there's no expectation that that's where you should get. Every time you start, you'll find your mind is in a different state to any other sit or to any other time that you've meditated before. I was talking about beginner's mind half an hour ago, and one of the things that I like to do is compare it to a beach. I don't know if you've ever spent any time near a beach, a particular set of, part of the coastline. And if you go down to the beach every day, you find it's the same stretch of coastline, the same stretch of shingle or sand or whatever it is. But each day it changes. There's a different formation of the sand or the shingle, different bits of driftwood or seaweed have been washed up, but yet it's the same stretch of beach. And our minds are very much like that. We come to the same mind, but every time it's slightly different. Every time there's a different formation, it's in a different state. The tide is in or out, or there's different bits of driftwood have been washed up. And that's really what we're doing with meditation, is we're noticing afresh each time, how is this mind? It may be the same mind, but it's different. And whatever experiences we've had with meditation in the past, when we come to sit, it's always, how is the mind now? How is it in this moment? So it's not even it's not even a question of how it is in this session. It's how it is right now. And that's one of the reasons that we work with the breath, is because we're bringing our attention very quite closely into the present moment. It's not even how is this breath cycle, it's how is this moment of this breath cycle. How is this particular part of the in-breath? How is this particular part of the out-breath? How is this particular turning point? So this attention to closely noticing is what is being encouraged and trained here. And at the same time, and importantly at the same time, we bring to our practice, if we're skillful, and my encouragement is to do this, we bring this attitude of self-care and compassion, understanding that it's okay to have a mind like this. It's human. This is normal. This is natural. It's how else could it be given where this mind has been in the past? And it's understanding that with real care and kindness and compassion. How could it be otherwise given what this mind, what this body has been through? How could it be otherwise? This is how it is, and it's understandable. So just some points about being a beginner in practice. The beginner's mind is a wonderful place to be. Firstly, it's open. That's one of the most important things about the beginner's mind. It comes without a set of expectations for practice. It's open to possibilities, new possibilities, all possibilities. So we're not constrained by the past with a beginner's mind. We have not become entrenched in a rut. So we come afresh to our practice. So there's this energy of openness. And that's one of the most important things about bringing our beginner's mind to our practice. An energy of openness, not constrained by the past. So whatever experiences we've had, we're not constrained by them. Yes, they're there, and they may be important, but we're not actually entrenched or attached to them. And secondly, one of the other aspects of beginner's mind that I would like to talk a little bit about is that very often when we begin something in life, we're quite enthusiastic, eager. There's a new adventure, something new to explore. So there's this sort of sense of enthusiasm that we can bring. I don't know if you remember what it was like when you first sat for the very first time, or maybe this evening was your very first time. I don't know. I see some very experienced faces amongst the people on the screen, people I recognize and are familiar with. So it may not be your first time, but if you can remember how it was when you first went to meditate that very first time, and there was sort of, I don't know how it was for you. It may have been different, but quite often when we start something fresh, there's a sort of like an enthusiasm. Oh wow, this is a new project. How's this going to be? So there's an energy of aliveness here, and that's the other thing that a beginner can bring to practice, and we can remind ourselves of this sort of enthusiasm. What's this about? Got no expectations here. What's this gonna bring? So there's openness to possibilities and an energy of aliveness. And the third thing that we might bring with beginner's mind to practice is this lack of preconceptions. We've not become accustomed yet to just one frame of reference or doing things in an established way. We haven't become, we've got no experience to actually keep us into one mode of operating. So there's this sort of sense of an unconstrictedness. We don't bring any expectations. We don't have any preconceptions of how things should be. So that's very important about being a beginner, and that's quite refreshing. And the fourth thing that one should mention here is this, I've already touched on it, is this lack of expectation. So many people, when you've been doing something for a certain length of time, you have an expectation of how it should go. And that's very understandable. It's very human. I'm sure the neuroscientists would tell us it's to do with how we've survived. We build on experience with things that have worked in the past, have got us thus far. Well, why not repeat them? Because they've worked in the past. And what goes with that is that we may have a tendency to expect things to be a certain way. And of course, with meditation, just because we've had a certain experience in meditation a year ago or a week ago or yesterday, doesn't mean that we should have it again today. So say you had a very calming type of meditation session a week ago. That doesn't mean to say that today will be calming. It may be, but you don't know that. Your mind state may be totally different, and that's absolutely allowable and understandable. But if you're a beginner and you've had no experience a week ago, then you have no expectation. So there's this complete openness as to how things should be. And the other few things that one can mention about beginner's mind is that one of the things that we might be capable of as a beginner is be prepared to take very small steps. Be prepared to just make very small movements in our practice. And we're very open to this idea of not knowing. We don't prejudge what meditation's about. So there's this other aspect of beginner's mind, which is they talk about this. The Zen practitioners talk about it. They call the don't know mind. I have no expectations. I just don't know what's going on here, and that's okay. So this open is another aspect of openness, really. It's just don't know mind. Don't know what's going to happen. Don't know what the next breath is going to bring in terms of experience. Don't know mind. That's okay. And that's a really quite an open place to be. And the other thing that one can mention is that when you've been doing something for a certain while, there's a great tendency to sort of think, well, I know a bit about this. I sort of like have a certain experience. I feel established in this practice. And that's very understandable. But the beginner has a sense of never having done this before. And so any sense of sort of being an expert at it can be completely let go. It doesn't enter into their equation. So the beginner actually has quite a sort of a fresh outlook here. And the other aspect of being a beginner that is worth mentioning here is that there's no pressure to achieve or attain anything. There's no, you may come in with a certain set of expectations, but if you come in fresh and really alive and open to all possibilities, there's no pressure. There's no expectation that you have to achieve anything in this particular sit or this particular moment. And that's really quite refreshing. And the beginner can bring that aspect of mind into their practice. So all these aspects of being a beginner are really quite invigorating and healthy. Just going to adjust my view. That's it. I've got the gallery. That's it. Okay. So beginner's mind is something that we can regularly retouch into and bring it into our awareness again. And certainly at the beginning of the year, is a good time. It's a new beginning, and we can bring this aspect into our practice. Just thought I'd sort of pause there And if anyone has any chat questions or would like to unmute themselves and ask anything, I'll see what I can do. I don't claim to be able to answer every question that comes my way. What I do is if I find there's something that I really don't feel I can answer, I hand it on to Colin next week, or to Ajahn Subhaddo. But please feel free to sort of raise anything you wish to. We've got over 15 minutes of the session left, so if you want to ask anything, either in the chat or unmute yourself. Okay, well, there's one or two things I can talk about whilst you're thinking of questions. And just, if you really are new to practice, one of the things that often comes up is how often should one sit and for how long? Now, if you're an experienced practitioner, that won't be a question that you'll probably have answered that question for yourself. But if you're really new to practice, it's always worth considering this. Well, traditionally, for a lay person, that's someone who's not a monastic, the recommendation is to sit twice a day, 20 minutes or half an hour, something like that. But it's so dependent on your own individual circumstances. But I think that the main thing I would stress here. Oh yes, that's absolutely right. Yeah, and someone's saying that a host has to allow people to unmute. Yeah, okay. Wangdu, I don't know if I've been made a co-host here. Wangdu, can you allow people to unmute? Yeah, okay. I think we have. Yeah. So please go ahead and ask a question. It was Andy, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, please. I don't know if you can hear me, but
yes, I can. Yes.
Excellent. Sorry, I'm in a caravan in the Swiss Alps at the moment, and it's -14. So, I've got a question. I'm relatively new to meditation. I wasn't very well early last year, and I'd suffered from anxiety, depression, and I spent some time in hospital, and I got brought back in there into the world of mindfulness, something that I picked up on 16 years ago when I had a similar episode. I've been meditating every day, initially just starting through apps on my phone, which I've found very useful, actually, just short meditations. But I've developed more through reading self-help books more recently, which has really introduced me to the concepts and the teachings of Buddhism, which a lot of them contain. And recently read The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama, which absolutely inspired me, which brought me to the Buddhist Society more than anything else. And I've been joining some of the lunchtime meditations on a Monday and Friday. And my meditation now is really getting to that stage now where in 8 months, which has been since I was in hospital, where I'm moving forward now and I'm meditating on my breath all of the time rather than using my body to maintain that feeling. And I can literally just sit on the breath now for 20, 30 minutes. I joined a meditation on Sunday, the Sunday morning meditation last Sunday, and the most strange happening sensation came to me. Now, we talk about the senses, and I've learned a lot of grounding techniques as well. But the lady who was running the meditation course lit some incense after she'd done the candles. She lit some incense. I was meditating on my breath, but I could smell incense. It was the most strangest, amazing feeling that I got. But I could smell incense all the way through it, and I was like breathing it in, and as I was meditating. So that level of attention I'm getting to, would I really be expecting to pick that up in such a short time, or is it just my mindset that's allowing me to do that?
Okay, so thank you, Andy, for the question.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing how afterwards how I felt that, and whether it was an extra sense that was there almost.
Yeah. So that's a great question, and one of the things I would say is that you've had an experience in a meditation sit in a session, and it sounds as though it was a blessed experience, something that has given you some sort of encouragement, has actually shifted something for you, has perhaps opened something up. I'm not quite sure, but it sounds as though there is an uplift about that experience. And as a consequence of that, you've actually, what I'm hearing from you is that you're quite enthusiastic about meditation practice, because you actually think that there's some real possibilities here, and there's some progress to be made and changes to happen. And you mentioned His Holiness's book, The Art of Happiness, and that's part of the story that you've brought to us tonight. And one of the things that one can say about any meditation experience is, yes, you can be grateful for it. You can actually acknowledge what you've received, and that's real. And I would invite you to do that. Actually, really acknowledge that you have received that. That was in that session. You received that experience, and this has been beneficial for you and uplifting for you. And that experience is not now. What you have to deal with in this session is what is now in this session. What you have to deal with and what you need, what is there to be noticed is what occurs not just in this session, but in this breath. And this breath is different to the last breath. And this session is different to the session where you had these wonderful, blessed experiences that will have shifted you, will have changed you, and your mindset will be different as a consequence of them. But what you're being invited to do in any practice, any session, is be with this experience. So what I'm saying is, yes, this is important for you, and it's wonderful. And actually, I'm uplifted myself by hearing your story, and I want to express that I share. There is some happiness in me to have heard that story. It's great. It's really great. And I would invite you to acknowledge it in yourself, to yourself. And it's important. And the next session is the next session. The next breath is the next breath. The important thing to notice in your practice is this breath. How is your mind right now? How is your mind right now? And that is the practice. And you know, I know of no meditation teacher in the Buddhist tradition that would do anything other than say, this is great, acknowledge it, and don't look for it again. Only notice occurring right now. Because, you know, this is one of the things I was talking about with beginner's mind. You know, a beginner comes to practice without expectations. Now, many people in the Buddhist world, many meditators will have had meditation sessions where they have some, you know, they will move, their mindset will be in a happy place, a calm place. You know, it will be different, and they will be grateful for it, and that's wonderful. And if you look for it again, and it's so natural, it's so human to want that experience again. And it's so understandable. And I invite you to have compassion for yourself if you have that tendency. Many of us will have that tendency to want that again, and notice it. Because what's important is the beginner's mind to bring to that next session. There are no expectations here.
Yeah.
So that, you know, the tendency is if you've had a really great meditation session and the next one isn't quite at that level, or it doesn't, your mind doesn't go to that place, and you think, oh, it's no good, I'm not making progress, I've failed. And that's just as much a trap as actually, you know, well, that is the trap. That is the trap, because you're expecting something, and the practice is to notice the expectations. And yeah, just that. I mean, it's a great question, Andy. I mean, you know, it's in Yin. I thank you for sharing that with us, for having the courage. Gosh, I hope you're not too cold there, sitting there in -14.
It's all right.
And we're basking here in London. It's I think it's 1 degree, so it's, you know, actually, you know, positively balmy in comparison. But
no, we
thank you for sharing that. That's really great, because you helped me illustrate. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, because I one of the things I do alongside my meditation is I journal, and again, it's something, the technique that I learned from a lady who inspired me. She was my personal therapist whilst I was in a hospital, and I've done it every day. In fact, I'm on day 245 now. But you like you said, you know, that was then. You know, this is the now, and I'm sticking with that in the now. And I journal, but I only journal positive things that happen every day, and or something that I'm grateful for. And it could be a simple thing as, you know, I made my wife a cup of tea in the morning, and I'll take it to her, and she has it in bed, and she's really grateful for it. And for me, that's a positive thing, and I write that down. And I wrote that down last week, but I never actually go back and I look at my journal of those positive things, because I've sort of left them there. You know, for me now, it's that positive thing happens when it happens, and I'm getting now more and more closer to that mindful state that I want to be, mindful state I want to be in, and I think I've achieved that in a relative short space of time. But there will be ups and downs with it as I go along, and I appreciate that. So, no,
thank you very much, Andy, for sharing that. And you know, your consistency in journaling over all those days, consecutive days, says to me that actually you have a capacity to sort of like be very committed and regular in your practice, and that's a wonderful thing to have. And I really would encourage you with that. And as you say, with the journaling, it's not you go back to look at the journal. It's the act of actually acknowledging it to yourself. That actually you've done these positive things, and that's the important point. And it's the same with these meditation sessions. It's not that they're unimportant. They are important. The ones you've had in the past are important. They're part of your experience. But the practice is to be with right now, the present moment, and that's the important place. And yes, I would be the first person to say that the present moment happens in a context, and that's the context is what your experience in the past. And that's important. But it's the present moment that is the place to be, to locate your attention. So thank you very much, Andy. I see Glyn has raised a hand. So over to you, Glyn. Please, if you want to answer. Good evening.
Good evening, Richard. When I meditate for more than 20 minutes, I get considerable discomfort in the upper back immediately below the shoulder blades. Is this a common complaint with beginners? I do try to remain as erect as possible.
Okay, so thank you, Glyn. Thank you very much for that. The question was that is it a common complaint to have a discomfort in the upper back in meditation, and is this common in beginners? And it varies a great deal, Glyn. And you know, we all have different bodies. We're all at different ages. We've all had different sort of conditions, and our bodies have been through different things and experiences. So I wouldn't say that this is necessarily common or normal. What I would say is my encouragement is to get comfortable. And if you're finding a problem in your upper back when you're sitting erect in meditation, then find some way of supporting yourself. It's absolutely okay to use some sort of support. Are you unsupported when you're meditating, or do you have a chair or a settee?
I have a chair, but I sit upright, so it's
yeah,
my back
okay.
is unsupported. Richard.
Well, yes, your back's unsupported. Okay. Well, I don't quite know the how you could deal with this, because I can't actually see how you're sitting. But I'm face on with you at the moment. But what I would suggest is just experiment a bit in finding a cushion or something to support your lower back.
Yes.
And that may take the pressure off your upper back.
Yes.
So, and that, you know, to all of you, I would say, I mean, it's a very good point you raised, Glyn, but to all of you, I would say, when you're sitting, do try and get comfortable. You know, in Buddhist practice is you know, I remind you of the first noble truth, the truth of dukkha. Buddhist practice is supposed to lead us beyond dukkha, out of dukkha, and it's not supposed to create more dukkha. And dukkha, for those of you who don't know, is the Pali word that means unsatisfactoriness or suffering. So my encouragement to all of you is, please do get comfortable when you sit to meditate. Find a position that really works for you. Experiment, Glyn, and just see if some support, some cushioning, and just take the pressure off your upper back. So please, don't create more suffering for yourself when you sit.
Thank you, Richard.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the question. Anyone else before we? No. Okay.
Just quickly on
yes.
that one. I've heard of people doing lying meditations, and it could be a bit of a cop-out, but on the other hand, why not? So I'm wondering, you know, maybe Glyn could lie down. Yes,
absolutely. I'd say one of the thank you, Meg. Yeah, but I mean, one of the problems with lying down is, of course, the tendency is to fall asleep. But there's a trick with lying down, and that is to have when you lie down, you recline, but have your hand upright, so that if you fall asleep, you'll wake yourself up because your hand will fall. So yes, I mean, Meg, that's a very good point to make, and thank you for that. Is that, you know, one of the positions for meditation is lying down. I mean, not many people do it because the tendency is to fall asleep. But yeah, just experiment and see what works. Thank you, Meg. That was a very good point. Okay, well, thank you all very much for joining this online Sangha.
Really great as ever. Thank you.
Thank you all for, and I think Colin will be back next week, or yes, I think so. So same time, same place next week. Please log on, and I wish you well.